Hey, it's CSEC Panda here. As you can tell by the title, I'm going to talk today about how to write a grade 1 winning English B essay. This is for CXC, of course, well, CSEC in particular. So what I want to show you today is the actual process that I used to write the essays in particular, because I don't know if it was just me and the way I was doing it, but I found that this was actually like a huge workload to be prepared for the exam, right? Because it's all of these poems and this long text and this long story, and you don't know which part of this that they're going to be referencing. You definitely know that 18 of those poems you're not going to need to deal with, but you don't know which ones it is. And then I thought maybe when they released the broad topics, that would have made more sense in terms of, okay, well, you can understand now what exactly we're doing, but no. So, because you won't know that, and because you need to do this anyway, I'm going to show you exactly what I did in a practice essay. I can't show you the one from the paper, of course, but I did practically the same thing. And this is linked to another video that I had done before, where I talked a little bit more about the technical aspect of things. But this is the actual seeing how it comes together video, so let's go into it, right? Okay, so here on my lovely notes, you see my pre-writing phase, where I was trying to understand the question structure. To help you understand it, it's basically that this paper comes in 3 sections, and they want you to write 3 essays. The first one is 111, where they want to know 1 instance of the theme that they give you, 1 response of a character, and 1 device that the author used. The second thing is a 222 response, where they want to know for each poem, so that's how it becomes 2, 1 instance of the theme, 1 response from each character, and 1 device that the author uses to portray this. And then, for the prose section, they want you to do a 211, where they tell you 2 instances of a theme that they give you, and then they want 1 response from a character and 1 device that the author uses. That is a lot. I don't want to discourage you, but it's a lot to do. So let's look at the strategy that I worked out, which you see here. This was a little bit more pre-writing, and it was where I was figuring out the starter sentences and the structure that you could use in order to make this happen. So I don't think you can really read that though, but I was dealing with understanding the elements of style and the language analysis, which I believe they said they wanted. So what this really boils down to is that there are these little sentence starters that you can use that sound very much like, so you can say the writer uses, and then just insert element of style or technique, and then this suggests that something happened, and when you string these together, it sounds like you know what you're doing. I'm going to read what I wrote for you in a minute so you can understand that. And so now we see the outline. I strongly suggest, that you make a simple outline like this, okay? You just, especially for the poetry section where there's a lot more to organize, you have the 2 poems that either they give you or you pick, whichever one, and then you just write poem 1, poem 2, then you come across to instance 1, instance 2, you come across to whatever you're going to write. So like for this, the question that they gave on this past paper, and unfortunately I didn't write the year, so I don't know which one, but it was, my parents and Dreaming Black Boy share the theme yearning to be accepted. Write, focusing on this theme in the 2 poems. For each poem, describe 1 instance in which the speaker's yearning to be accepted is evident. Also discuss how each speaker responds to this feeling. Finally, for each poem, you must examine 1 device used to portray the speaker's yearning for acceptance. Alright? So I wrote this little outline down here, and I went, my parents, Dreaming Black Boy, and then next to each of those I put instance of theme, instance of theme. Then I put, for my parents kept me from, and then Dreaming Black Boy, the teacher's eyes wouldn't go past me today. And I was trying to find little quotes from the poem from now, so that when I got to the actual writing stage it would be easier to do. And so I went and did the same thing with the response to the feeling. I put tries to hide for my parents, and then holds out hope for Dreaming Black Boy. And then for the device, I went with irony and alliteration. This was something that gave me a lot of trouble in the actual exam, because sometimes you can't remember what device was used to describe this, and it's so much of the question of what they're asking. And I don't know, it's just something that you have to hope you remember correctly and it works out. But yeah, so let's move on now to when I was done planning that, and I didn't take too many minutes to do that because I was trying to simulate exactly how it would be on the exam. And this is what I wrote, okay? You ready? Alright, let's go. A young boy's yearning to be accepted is a central theme in both Mervyn Morris's Dreaming Black Boy and In My Parents by Stephen Spender. This theme is evident in the very first line of Morris's poem, where the persona wishes that his teacher's eyes won't go past him on that day. This line is interesting because it shows the casual lack of inclusion that the child experiences, even in what should be an inclusive environment. As the reader, this makes me feel empathy for the persona, whose desire to be treated equally is plain. In My Parents, this theme of yearning for acceptance also surfaces early in the poem. The persona begins by noting that his parents kept him from associating with children that they considered rough. The writer uses the phrase kept from, which suggests that the persona cherished a desire to be accepted by those other children. As the reader, this helps me imagine the sting of thwarted desire to fit in with a group of peers. Both boys respond to their feelings of longing in relatable ways. In Dreaming Black Boy, the persona holds on to hope as he continues to imagine the details of a world where people wouldn't react to him as if he was from Mars. He imagines himself expressing, making himself known, and raising his voice. Differently in My Parents, the persona chooses to hide his true feelings of fear and rejection. His longing for acceptance is so strong that he overlooks the bullying that he is subject to and smiles at his tormentors. As the reader, both responses make me reflect on how much value being accepted holds for children. Both Morris and Spender employ poetic devices to portray their personas yearning for acceptance. Near the end of Dreaming Black Boy, the writer uses alliteration to create impact. The phrase "plotters in pajamas" evokes an image of the tireless hatred and rejection in the speaker's world. As the reader, this brings me near the feelings of the persona as he lives through de facto rejection. Similarly, the last lines of My Parents contain irony, which the writer uses to contrast the attitude of the speaker with the response of the other children. While the persona smiles to hide the pain of not being accepted, the line, "they never smile back," shows the stark difference in the children's interest in accepting him. Both poems give a poignant view of a child's world, where the yearning for acceptance often takes precedence over all else. Okay, so that's basically what I wrote. I had the word juxtaposition written here, but it should have been irony, but that doesn't really matter, because this was a scrap. So you see, that's what I wrote though, and you would have heard how many times I repeated the theme, yearning for acceptance, and I went ahead and used the last names of the author to just make it sound smooth, and I was really in there and I knew what I was talking about. And so I didn't waste too much time in just answering the questions and getting to the instance of the theme, and then the response that was different for each of them, and then the two devices. One was alliteration, plotters in pajamas. I will tell you, when I was writing this was literally the only thing I could remember. I wasn't even sure if it was a good example of alliteration, but you know what, it was close enough, so I went with it. And the irony of I smile at them and they never smile back, I went ahead and said that was irony because I don't mean to be rude to the exam people, but this is kind of a tall order that they just want you to be able to come up with this, so I like to imagine at the end of the day they just want to know that you kind of know what these devices are and you kind of understand how to write an essay, and as long as you do those two things, it should be fine. So, on my actual exam, I did an okay job. I got caught on the same issue of I didn't want to say that something was a metaphor twice. They were asking us to compare, I think it was the theme of feelings of patriotism and love of the country, love of one's country, with Dennis Brutus's poem. Remember that one? I forgot already. No, I remember what it was. It's the You know, he's in prison and the constant imagery you face, right? That and the other one, South by Kamal Brathwaite. And they were like, now, we want you to show us how these are similar and remember some themes in there. So I had the metaphor of the shadows oppress me and another metaphor of the country's like a lover to Dennis Brutus, and it was so hard to not say metaphor twice because I didn't want to do that, but I also couldn't remember anything else. In the end, I switched one of them to personification and the other one to a metaphor, but then that was also, I don't know. But in the end, I got the grade, which is good, and I think that if you put in a reasonable amount of effort with the kind of thing that I talked about here, you should be good to go as well. So this was a little bit longer than I intended for it to be, but you know, I kind of like to talk. I kind of talk slow too. So I hope that this helped you. I hope that you at least were able to take away some idea from this. If you don't do something similar to what I did, I think that it's a good idea to have a plan when you go in there, because I'll tell you in the actual moment, that exam feels really short in terms of writing time. So I hope this worked for you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. Please like the video. It keeps me motivated. And I hope that you do really well on your exam, okay? Alright, I'll see you.